Okay, so good morning. Thank you all for coming. Today, I'm going to talk about creating effective multimedia for the purpose of the recording. I'm Lynn Namens. So let's get started. So today I want to kind of expand upon what Lydia shared with us last month. She focused on visual design, and that absolutely ties into effective multimedia. So we're going to talk about multimedia learning, then we're going to move into some examples of videos, and then we'll wrap up our session with some tips and strategies. And we're going to talk about some things that are required for videos specifically, but then we're going to have an open discussion, and I'd like to hear from you all as well. Obviously, we've all made lots of videos at this point, and most of you have spent more hours in video editing than I have, so I'm excited to learn and hear from you. So when we first think about multimedia, most people think of videos, animations, simulations, but it's really a mix of any type of media. So text and images, audio with images, any combination of those things, that is multimedia. So the Moodle book is a multimedia resource, and anything that we touch pretty much is going to be multimedia. In the 1970s, sorry, that was not where I wanted to go. That's really not where I want to go. Sorry guys, we're on slide 2. In the 1970s, Dr. Richard Mayer began researching the multimedia learning trend, because for, paper, images, all that things, and how can we do that effectively for students. He developed the cognitive theory of multimedia learning, and it has since grown. If you search for this on Google or anything like that, you'll probably run across Dr. Ruth Clark as well. And they're usually cited together, but they've collaborated on their own as well. So there's lots of different principles, and we're just going to touch on some of them. So the first one, sorry, I lie. So basically what the cognitive theory of multimedia learning is that we input data through our sensory channels. So visually, through our ears, all of that. And we have a finite capacity of how much information we can process at a time. And when those things come in, they come in on different channels. So we have the visually represented material, and then we have what we hear. And then we have to process that information. So the information first comes in through that sensory memory, and that's where we capture that information. So the first time we see an image, it is actually captured in total for, like a very split second. And what we hear, it is logged in there. But from that instant, things kind of we start losing that information. So the brain has to then go into its working memory to process that information. And that is where we organize words and the sounds that we're hearing into our own mental models and our own schema. After that has been processed, that's when it goes into our long-term memory. So the amount of information that we get from input to then long-term memory, like we're losing bits of that information. So the images and the pictures and the words and the text that we choose have to be very deliberate and very impactful for that reason, because we need to get the message to the students as best we can. So as I said, we're going to go through some principles. As we go through them, please understand that one size does not fit all. There are exceptions to all of these things. There are studies and arguments against a lot of these that kind of try to demystify or demyth those principles. A lot of them, hopefully, will seem like common sense because we've been developing multimedia lessons and experiences for a while now. So hopefully we're already doing or not doing, depending on the case, some of these things. And I've tried to source examples from our own courses and our own work. So if you see something up here, please just take it in the context of this presentation as an example. I've tried to give y'all a heads up, so some of y'all know who I'm coming after. No, I'm kidding, and this is my disclaimer, I'm not an expert at this. I have fallen victim to a lot of these don't do this kind of things in my courses. So, you know,
No one's safe.
no one's safe. We all can improve. Y'all are all awesome. But as we go through, if y'all have something to add, something you've experienced, something you've thought of, what you've gone through, please feel free to step in and share. So the first principle is the multimedia principle, and it's basically words plus pictures is a better experience than just text alone or just images alone. So it's that combination of things that really impact learning. We can all agree on that, right? Okay. So, but this means that we do have to be kind of deliberate in our choice of types of graphics and images that we use. So we have 6 examples up here of different types of graphics. In the upper left, we have a representational image, and that's a single element. It's just a photo of something, it's a caption, it's just a single thing, an icon type of thing. Relational shows the relationships between 2 or more elements. This could be a line graph, bar graph, pie graph, Venn diagram, that type of thing. Then we have organizational, which depicts relationships among elements. And then transformational, I bet you know which one that is, right? The metamorphosis. So that is just depicting changes in time and space. And then the water cycle is interpretive. Interpretive visuals make things that are kind of intangible, visible, and concrete. Anybody want to figure out what that one is? The delegate.
Yeah, people
Yes.
everybody's house.
Literal.
Right. It is decorative. I found this one in my library of images. I was like, oh my God, I really hope I didn't use that at some point. Probably. So decorative images don't actually enhance the text, and they can provide a distraction for the learner. So anything that distracts the learner, you have to really consider, does it need to be there? What is the purpose of it? So when we go through and look for images to add to a Moodle book, you really want to be deliberate and pick things that truly support the text, because if they don't support the text, they don't belong there. You don't want to add something just so the page doesn't look blocky. If you're going after something, just put an image on a page, that's not the purpose of adding those images. So next, I want you guys to take a look at these 2 images. We're learning about the anatomy of a brain. This is for the contiguity principle. If you guys were first learning about the anatomy of a brain, which image would you find more helpful or more effective? Which one draws to you?
Right.
Why?
Because all the information is there.
Yeah,
It
shares space.
Exactly. So the contiguity principle pretty much just states align images and text together, put them together. So on the one on the left, I'm not saying it's a bad image. I'm not saying that it isn't teaching something, but it uses more brain power for the student to look at the brain, find a letter, go down to the legend, find the letter again, figure out what it's called, and then potentially look back at the image to kind of cement it in place. Whereas the one on the right, it's all right there. So this principle in particular, I feel like works really well with the visual design principles that Lydia did, because we have to think about alignment and spacing and choosing those words and whatnot. But there are other examples that maybe aren't as intuitive and isn't just about a single page or a single video. So if you are in the Moodle book and you see an image and then you have to scroll down a little ways in order to read what that image is about, that separation between graphic and text goes against this principle. So we want to put images as close as possible to that description, that description and that context, so that it relates and the students can kind of visually tie those things together. That doesn't mean that it's going to work for every image, especially if you have a large one that you kind of fills the screen. That's, fine, put it below or above it, reference to it. But if possible, try to wrap text around it or try Bootstrap or something. You just don't want to have them really far apart. Another example is having a resource open in a new window when students need to refer back to things in Moodle. So this is something Rochelle and I were talking about yesterday. She is a SME who wants her to recreate these giant tables in the book. And the purpose is so students can see the table as he's kind of describing them, talking about them, instead of them having to look at the textbook page and follow along with his written description. So think about things like that when you're having multiple resources. How can we kind of guide the student into identifying those pieces together? And then a final example is if you have instructional language separate from an activity. So let's say a student has to watch a video before they take the quiz. So, in your checklist instructions in that module summary, you're gonna, watch the video, whatever. But then within the quiz instructions itself, you can embed it, or you can link to that video again. Or you can add a description question, which isn't actually a question, it's just like a description area, and embed that video inside the quiz itself. So you don't want to separate hey, you have to go back and refer to this when you're actively doing this in an activity. Try to tie those things better together. This principle, and this is where there's some gray area and some arguments, but this principle also recommends that students get feedback on quizzes immediately. So they answer the question and they find out immediately whether they got it right or wrong, what is the correct answer, what's that feedback. So that is very helpful. It reinforces that material, but it also brings into mind okay, now what do we do about cheating? So I think that as long as after the quiz is closed or after their attempt, they can see kind of their feedback as much as possible, that's fine, but keep this in mind when you're building lessons and things. So if they get something wrong or they go off in a different branch, add that supplemental information, add an explanation from the instructor of not, you got it wrong, try again, but why did you get it wrong? What is the correct path? That type of thing. Everything makes sense so far? Mm-hmm. Yay, all right.
I have a question.
Yes.
The example that you gave of the instructor wanting to recreate the table in the book, is part of that process determining if it's an effective use of time to recreate something that's already somewhere else, like in Moodle? If there's a complex graphic or something in a book,
yeah.
Is that something to where it's better to refer students to a book instead of trying to recreate it?
I would say if at all possible, the instructor would give Rochelle workable tables that she could just copy and put in there instead of sit there and actually recreate the actual table. Her situation is slightly different because of the book rights and what type of material he actually has to work with. She has them in image files, so JPEGs and PNGs. So there's no way to really copy and paste those in there. So it's one of those design decisions that you have, or design conversations you have to have with the instructor of really, what is the purpose of the table? Why do we need it in this? What are you going to talk about it? Could this be something you talk about in a video instead of trying to write it all out? Or, just kind of think about those things. But yeah, kind of depends on the publisher as well of what they'll allow you to put in the books. So, any other questions? Okay, so we're going to move into the modality principle, and this one pretty much is specific to videos, and it's basically, when possible, instead of using on-screen text or speech, just narrate it especially when it comes to complex processes or graphics, things that's fast-paced or very complex. Another example of this would be like if instructor or you are doing a how-to video, you want to say step 1 is to click on blah 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 instead of on the screen have step 1 click on whatever. So when at all possible, say it instead of typing it on the screen. So I have another example of this. This is from hold on, I gotta get over here to my clickable thing. This, yeah. So this is a video for CMST, and I'm only going to show you the first 15 seconds. Okay, super cute video, absolutely love it. But if you know, we have voice actors, how much more engaging would that have been if we had heard that conversation instead of just seeing it on the screen, right? So that's just another example of kind of how to keep this principle in mind of how can I use audio and narration to do this instead of just text on the screen. Okay. So the redundancy principle, less is more at the end. I'm kidding. You can actually go overboard when using graphics, text, and narration all at the same time. And this negatively impacts learning and processing because you're trying to see, read, hear all at the same time. And those elements are fighting for attention, and your brain just automatically loses the power to do all of those things at once. So it tells us to remove any redundant information in any format. This means if you want to delete on-screen text when you have narration, that's going to say the same exact thing. If you recall way back a couple of cycles ago, our modular introduction videos were a redundant presentation of the module summary. We were stating the objectives as they were written on the screen, and then we were going over the checklist as it was written on the screen. And it's like, yes, we want to hit all of those different modalities, but that information's already there in written format for them. And for a video, they can read the captions, they can download the transcript, so we don't have to type on the screen what we're going to say. So I have another example of this. This is a Learn and Go video. Let me preface this by saying, I love these videos. It is not a bad design. I think they're engaging. I think they're fun. I think they're useful. I'm just going to use it as an example within the context of the redundancy principle. Okay. So, and I'm not going to play the whole thing. Give it.
Federal financial aid regulations require the confirmation of student attendance in order for students to receive federal aid. In order to meet these regulations, it is required that all courses feature an academic engagement activity in Moodle that students must complete by 2 specific dates within the term. As an instructor, you are responsible for ensuring the academic engagement activities are present and have the correct due dates. In LSU online courses, students must complete the first academic engagement activity by the 5th day of the term. Based on LSU Online's 7.2-week terms, the date.
Okay, so what did we notice?
There was text on the screen along with the narration, along with images, and it didn't always match up.
Along with closed captions.
And closed
Yeah.
captions.
Yeah.
Captions off.
Yeah, so yeah, that's up. So when I first watched this, I was like, oh, you know, this is nice. But then it was like the text that was on the screen didn't even match what was being said. So now I had to fight with like, okay, which one do I pay attention to?
Yeah.
And then with the animations and everything. So what the redundancy principle tells us is that students can learn better with just animation and just narration. You don't need that visual text, okay? And it's probably also less time consuming in creating a video if we don't have to add that additional text on the screen itself. It's not.
No,
Okay.
because then you have to figure out what images.
So it's very tempting to always have something moving or coming in or doing something on the screen, but it's not always necessary and it can be distracting for students. There are some exceptions, like if you don't have a picture or something that ties into that information, or it's hard to find icons or stock footage or something to support that audio. In that case, you can add some text back onto the screen, or consider using the entire thing as a podcast. Obviously for this you can't, but you know, using it as a podcast, at least it's just audio, and then if they want to, they can download that transcript and read it. And then another exception is when the audio might be difficult to understand, such as in foreign language learning, or if there's a really, really strong accent, that type of thing.
I just
Yeah.
want to jump in and say one
Yeah.
thing. One thing that I think we try to do with these videos is make them like real punchy, real quick, like there's always something going on screen. And that's not always necessary. I think we have a sort of horror vacui, like a fear of blank spaces, but that's not always a bad thing. You obviously don't want a 3-minute video that's just narration with a completely blank screen because no one's going to watch it. But in the case of these videos where we are relying on generating our own animations, it's okay for something to just be a static image for a few, like I would say 30 seconds, 45 seconds while you're explaining it. They'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know how much work it is to fully animate all of these.
Yeah.
It's a really long time.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple more principles that we're going to go over. I know they're my favorite. And there are more principles out there than what I'm covering today. So
There's 12. I think there's 12.
there's like a lot of them. Okay, so the coherence principle tells us to avoid unrelated words, graphics, and sounds. This includes music. And when you use music for the entire video, you are clogging that auditory channel. So you can, use it for the intro if you want, use it for the outro, but while the actual content, the meat of the video is going on, there really shouldn't be any music in that background. You want to avoid on-screen action or animation that isn't related to the content. So avoid those decorative graphics and clip art, Lord help us. Don't add icons just to add an icon or just to make the video move. It should actually serve a purpose. You want to use content that is centered on the instructional goal. So narration that goes off on tangents or includes irrelevant stories can impede the learner's ability to remember the content and the purpose of that video or that resource. So in a nutshell, you want to cut the fluff. The signaling, oh, it did. Sorry, it doesn't change on my screen. The signaling principle is basically giving visual and verbal cues to the student in order for them to help organize and process and kind of follow the instructional content. So in narration, you can vary the tone, the inflection, make key words stand out, but you can also use indicator words like first, second, third, that type of thing. Visually, you can use arrows and use the spotlight in Camtasia. You can use boxes, thought bubbles, add some of that animation. You can also organize the content visually into columns or color blocking if it's kind of two concepts, make one red, make one blue or whatever. Personalization, don't be a robot. You want to use conversational style and student-facing language. We already do all of this. Human voices are more effective than machine voices.
No.
Yes, it's true.
Those are my favorite kind of videos. Like you take out a video.
It's perfect. It's yes. You do want to make the author visible to promote learning, have that instructor presence. So if at all possible, get your instructors on screen. Doesn't have to be for every video, but at least for like the overview or something, get them on screen. And if you're creating a video for non-course related projects where there's no SME or no instructor, you can use avatars or learning coaches. And the Learn and Go series does a really great job of like always being consistent in like, this is the instructor person in this video, or these are the students, that type of thing. So having that consistently throughout your video or your series of videos just helps them kind of organize that information. Next, we have segmenting, which we all know about this. This is basically chunking things into manageable pieces. We do this already with our Moodle books, but how do we do this with our lecture videos? So I'm going to show you a couple of examples in a couple of slides that for how Kirsten and I have done some segmenting in videos. And then finally, don't be scared, the image principle, which basically means that students don't necessarily learn better when the speaker's image is added to the screen. Yes, it adds instructor presence, but videos that are nothing but a talking head, or videos that have that instructor in the bottom corner for the whole entire thing, doesn't necessarily make the same learning impact as not using it. So use cutaways to animation, to stock footage, to graphics and text and other things while you're using that narration. Any questions? Okay, so we're going to talk about videos and look at some examples. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we know videos should be short, focused, and relevant. We know that students lose focus, lose their attention in educational videos after about 6 or 7 minutes. So how do we make sure that they are focused and relevant and short? Part of it is remember the coherence principle to cut the fluff. So when you're talking with instructors, tell them that, hey, you kind of need to think about a single concept or this small group of like 3 concepts, those that they're chunked, and focus that on the core content. Have them start with a script. If they have a script and an outline, hopefully they'll stick to it. Those, if an instructor goes off in a direction that doesn't apply to the core content of the video, cut it out. That's not to say that that information isn't applicable, isn't interesting, isn't relevant, but for the purpose of the video, does it need to be there if it's not truly supporting the goal of this video? So have those conversations with them of like, this, structure these videos, structure what you want to say, and don't just turn on your PowerPoint and lecture like it's going to be your classroom. So introduction videos and course overview videos serve to hook the students, motivate them, tie to prior knowledge, etc. Has anyone ever heard of micro lectures? Okay, what are they?
Lectures. Right.
Okay, very good.
They're focused on a topic, but it's like summarizing a topic where maybe they can get more information somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Melissa, did you say you?
I would say it's on a specific topic.
Okay. So micro lectures, yes, on a single topic, they are short. This was coined by David M. Penrose, who calls himself the 1-minute professor, and he does like chemistry videos of like 1 minute or less. A lot of people think that, okay, they can be up to 3 minutes, but they are targeted. This is an example from Ohio State University. They have a YouTube channel called The Minute Professor, where faculty and researchers talk about their topic or what their research is doing in 60 seconds. So it's like a very small master series course. So I showed this one because I think it's really
True
true.
mosquitoes, I need to know this. She has mosquito ears.
Run.
Have you ever wondered where mosquitoes live during the winter? During the winter, they enter a hibernation-like state where they don't bite us. Instead, they pat on the back and divert all of their resources towards survival. This likely and other summer-hive states wonder why we trick mosquitoes into thinking it's the wrong time of year. For example, could we trick them into thinking it's winter time when it's summer so they don't bite us? Spoiler alert, we can, just like us with the mosquitoes circadian clock. Just like us, mosquitoes have circadian clock genes that tell them what time of day it is. And we wonder whether these same genes might also tell them what time of year it is. To test this, we stopped the clock. We found that by knocking down cell clocks, we could trick mosquitoes into thinking that it was summertime when really it was winter. Conversely, by knocking down another gene, we could trick mosquitoes into thinking it was winter time when really it was summer. We're now trying to figure out how all of this works.
She's so weird.
I know, but she's cute. Anyway, they have videos on like zombies and good grades versus bad. They have all kinds of things. So how can we kind of take that exciting
90-second professor.
yeah, you're right. How can we do that and actually implement that into our courses? So I have a couple of examples here. The first is a modular introduction video for CMST 3113 with Amy Fannin. And this was one of Carrie's instructors.
Oh, look at yours.
Hey y'all, I'm about to start a quilting project and have all the tools here that I need. Have my cutting mat, have a ruler, have a rotary cutter, and my favorite tool, my fabric. Like any project, you have to have the right tools. And that's what we're gonna focus on in this module, is learning how to use the right tools to analyze conversation. And we're gonna build your tool chest. We're gonna learn things like how to transcribe a conversation and work with a transcript. We're gonna learn how to use transcription symbols in the transcript to give more meaning to the conversation. And we're gonna understand the rule of parallelistic markers. Remember, you have some assignments due in this module, so be sure to use your tool of email to contact me if you have any questions. Now I'm gonna get to stitching.
She's so cute.
So adorable.
Oh my God.
Okay, so Carrie, to put you on the spot, how did you talk to Amy about the purpose of these videos? How did you get that out of her?
She's very creative on her own, but I made sure to tell her that we want her videos along with her course to stand the test of time as much as possible. So not to reference time specific things in her introductions. And she took what the whole entire module was about and related it back to something that they could, just her quilting or whatever she was scrapbook, whatever she was doing. And she did all of her videos like this. Every one of them are completely different. She's standing out in the middle of traffic. She's like, seriously, y'all need to go check out her course. She's standing out in the middle of traffic. One of her modules is about the social aspect of conversation. So she's in the social place on campus in the quad. You hear the bells in the background and she's filming. She's in carpool. She's in her kitchen and her kids are like screaming around her. So she has some really, really good examples, but she had to relate it back to what the content was about. You want to get the students, you want them to, oh, I want to see what she's got going on. And one of our student workers who was doing her captions says, I want to take this course. She sounds fun. I said, I know, it's Zach. And so just to put her own spin on things and to incorporate what the students were going to be learning about in that module, make it relevant to them to catch their attention, and the rest was all her just being so cute and creative.
Yeah.
So she generated all the ideas.
She did. She's reading a storybook and like it opens up and she's like, and they lived happily ever after. The end. Now. And then she starts talking and it's about your personal narrative and about that aspect of conversations. So she relates everything back. And yeah, she's really creative. And she's just so stinking cute. You just want to put her in your pocket. I know. So she never references, she says you have assignments due. So she says, in case I wanted to change it up and add something to it later. So she kept those things in mind as well because we wanted those videos to stand the test of time for as long as possible. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that they're really cute. And I mean, not every student's going to relate to quilting necessarily, but she did it in such a beautiful way of like the toolbox. And I'm like, okay, now you hooked me with like, I don't know anything about quilting, but I have a toolbox.
And she used purple and gold fabric.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I
saw that.
Should I introduce someone?
Maybe.
Awesome. So that, instructor presence out the wazoo, love it. So this example is from Physics 2001 with David Young, right? So we're gonna take a quick look at this one.
Ooh. This is more stuff.
Yeah.
Module 1, we will begin our study of physics by building on your solid foundation in algebra and trigonometry. Our objective is to be able to describe the motion of an object. We will learn the important difference between vector and scalar quantities. We will then define the vector quantities of displacement, velocity, and acceleration. These will be used to quantify the position of an object, its speed, how fast it's moving, and how fast the speed and direction are changing in time. For the special case of motion with constant acceleration, we will develop a set of relationships or equations called the kinematic equations of motion. Once armed with these equations, we will be able to predict the motion of objects. All of this analysis will be done without mentioning forces, which will be introduced later in the course. Thus, in this module, we're not so concerned with why things move, but we're more interested in how they move once they get going. Being able to analyze motion with constant acceleration is extremely important. We will encounter many situations in this course, and then also in physics too. The topics in this module provide us with the tools we need to deal with these kinds of problems.
So good.
So again, both of those were, just over a minute. And I think that this one is a really great example of being very selective in the choice of text that's on the screen and the use of the animations. So this one was created by Melissa. And Melissa, would you share your kind of design strategy of like how you came up with that?
Give me a little bit of a heads up. I looked for my notebook, which is not my to work with. And I usually listen through or looked at the script and try to think of things that were visual and just take notes so that I wasn't just spending a bunch of time on one thing. And then I could focus on just this selective animation things. And then I also figured out what the background intro stuff was gonna be and saved it as a file so that between every module, all I had to do was change the title. And then I even saved what would be the header type text and then the different kind of levels of text with their animations. I saved that all as a template folder so that every module I could just pop that in, pull in the audio. And then that way I can just go through and kind of listen to what are the key things, look at the book and figure out what are the key, how is it laid out there, try to mirror how those topics lay on there. And then, see what animations I already had from, I think this one, almost all those animations were pretty much from the TechSmith library.
Mm-hmm.
You just download those.
Yeah, and they're usually a whole sheet of a grid of different animations and you just crop it
Okay.
to the one that you want to use.
Are they just called animations?
You want to look at them in the video, not the image
Okay.
They are.
filter.
Yeah,
They're in the
are
video
videos.
filter,
They are videos.
and you can just put in like icon and it'll.
Texas library sucks. The search engine sucks. If you see anything.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Download it
And
somewhere you can find it because you will never find it again.
just a note about that, there is in the D&D media folder, there is a folder for Camtasia assets. So if you download some animated icons, save them in that place so that we can all kind of, go there first maybe to see what we've already got in our account or whatever. I mean, we can download as many times as possible, but it might help with, okay, I know Melissa used some science stuff. I'm doing a science class. Let me see what's in there already. So same thing with like music and those other things.
There's some really good music options that I found because I've like wanted to deafen myself after hearing the same introductions
Yeah.
that we use.
I have downloaded a lot of music from there.
Yeah, and they update it often, like
Yeah.
I'll go and they have 10, 15 new ones.
And stock footage too. That's not,
Mhm.
I mean, some of it's really corny, but there's
Right,
some
Right.
that looks realistic.
So going back to the presentation, potentially. So lecture videos obviously are longer than a minute. And I have some examples here. The first one is from Math 1029. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but it's with Julia Ledet. Ledet. This was a course developed by a remote designer, and it's a really great example of having that kind of focus on one concept, and it's walking students through, I think, probability. That's it.
Here's a card problem, then I'll find the probability of a certain thing happening. For this problem, usually with cards, we're going to use the combination formula. So for this problem, if you were dealt 3 cards from a shuffled deck of 52 cards, find the probability that all 3 cards are diamonds. So I have my deck of cards right here, and I'm going to first look for the number of successes.
So anyway,
So a success in this case is all.
she goes through, I love that she has the cards with her, and she's not spending the time in this video of talking, what is that combination formula, that process, whatever. They've already gotten that either in their textbook or through the Moodle book or whatever. So this is just concentrate on the application of that topic. So it was really cute.
It's low fidelity too. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be this like graphical ballet of.
Right.
Math likes to physically write on a thing with
Yeah.
a camera on the thing. That's their favorite thing to do. So
Was this
Camera
like
builds
mounted?
it's a little overhead that they have that they put on top of it. They gave them like a craft board, like what they were cutting fabric on, and they put an arm over it with an overhead cam, and they just borrow that. So they can they can focus it right on it. I saw them build it.
So what happens though when we have instructors who have several videos that they want or insist on using in the content? Obviously, one option is to pull the transcript and use that to kind of form your narrative description around it, so you don't technically have to use every single video. But we do have instructors who are like hardcore, like, nope, I want every single one of these videos. They're all pertinent. We want them in there. So these 2 options use the segmenting principle, which, remember, we're chunking that information. So the first one that we have is Geography 2050 with Jill with Jill, who was one of Kristen's instructors. And what she used was this is a single video, it's 31 minutes long, and she used Kaltura chapters in order to make kind of a table of contents. And she has that instruction of like, here's how you access it. these very faint three white lines right here is your navigation. And then so students can move directly to the metric system if that is what they want to watch.
This class, we will start dealing with the metric system.
So each segment is time-stamped with where exactly it lives in this video. Kristen, do you want to share of your decisions, like what happened to make this?
Okay, sure. So originally she had this these PowerPoints with her audio on them, and they're really good because if you've seen anything of hers or heard her talk, she's very good. She's very relatable. She tells really good stories, helps students make connections to the content they're teaching, because she does understand that these are students that aren't necessarily going to be, get their degree in geography. So she wants to try to make it as entertaining but relevant as possible to the student. So the PowerPoints are really good, but she would stay on one slide the whole time. And there were things that were talked about that just didn't feel like they, it should stay on that one slide. So, and then we were talking about like chunking the videos into small segments and looking at where that would best fit. So she went through each of hers and kind of divided up when content changed and where would be good to, thinking in terms of not going over, if possible, over like the 6-minute mark or so. And I'm pretty sure she did that. And when it was best, when she changed to a different topic. Originally, the idea was to make a playlist, but because there were so many of these, for me, it was easier to just create the full thing because, and I'll tell you why, I started off with a playlist and I was making these individual projects and then I accidentally saved over a project that I worked on.
She almost lost her mind when that happened.
So the best fit for this was to continue, but make each chapter its own slide. So that whole video would go in and then make chapters at each of those points where the slide changes. So now students can then, you can see each one has the title. So if they need to learn more about the scientific method or the metric system, they can do that. Versus a playlist of like 10, 15 videos, which I think a playlist is good for a certain amount of videos. Mm-hmm. That's just my preference. Mm-hmm. So that is why.
So this is chapters.
And this is chapters. Mm-hmm. And what's really nice up here is that there's actually a search field. Mm-hmm. So if they're looking for something specific, they could just be like, oh, looking for a metric or whatever.
Is it just searching from the titles of the chapters, or does it go through the chapters?
Oh, let's find out.
Search for dealing. I think it would probably, I don't know.
I don't know if there's like a word.
Put a bunch of tabs in there maybe, I don't know.
So here we go. So I searched for Earth. So we've got Earth systems, mapping the Earth. So probably just the title. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's running off of bookmarks. So if you tag the bookmarks, then it might, but.
And the easiest way, I'll tell you if you want to do this, is to have your Camtasia open on one screen and this on the other and see where the timestamps are, because it's way too difficult. I tried it to do it within Kaltura and figure out, it just likes to jump around. So it's easier to be like, okay, this starts at the minute 2:30, go to there on 2:30 and not try to figure out where 2:30 is in there.
And you made chapters in Camtasia?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
She didn't produce them as chapters.
She just marked them.
She marked, like you can use the marker line to add flags of specific pieces that you want to do.
Yeah, you just your bookmarks don't come over.
Yeah.
No.
So the actual
Dividing up the segments is done in Kaltura. And if I were to pull this video for like, because I looked for it in like the back end of Kaltura and it didn't have the bookmarks. So it's like it's
only that embedded
because it's
where?
in my media, you've done it. Yeah. Okay, so segmenting option 1. I've also done segmenting in my Poly 2051 course on American government. And it's kind of similar where you have the list of things, but the difference is that these are actually individual videos. So once you have your set of videos that you want, then you kind of curate them into a playlist. So that's the difference. But the reason I did it this way is because he did give me actual separate video files, and he wanted them to be able to look at them kind of individually. So the end result is similar. I don't have a search bar. Instead, I have this kind of forward and backwards. I've done up to 6, and it does, there's like a little scroll, but this is another option for chunking. And
I wanna see it.
so, okay. Just gonna move ahead in the order of.
Can I recommend something real quickly?
Yep, go for
Okay,
it.
so one thing that I realized, because I'm doing a playlist for a construction management course, and you know how we kind of got into the habit of, so that, you know, like when Len was doing it, pulling transcripts, and I'm sure with Erica, we wanted to label the video with the title of the course. Well, the thing is with playlists, if you do that, you can't see the title of the video. So for this, if I'm doing a playlist, what I do is I just go strictly with the title and use the description as like the name of the course and whatever, you know, chapter, whatever it goes with, because otherwise all it's gonna say is like Geography 2051, and like they can't figure out what the video is. So
Right.
think about that when you do create a playlist.
Right. We're gonna get into metadata in a minute. Okay, so here's the thing about Kaltura. It is a very quirky animal. So we all are familiar with the Multimedia space, right? That's like your global, all of the videos you have access to, all the ones you've created, etc. Each course also has a course media gallery. And what's weird is that if you embed a video, you add a video through the plugin or whatever, it is not automatically added to the course gallery. I don't know why, it drives me nuts. So in your little admin wheel under course administration at the very bottom, I don't know if y'all have ever noticed this, but you have Kaltura course media, okay? And basically you can publish videos to this course gallery without having them ever appear in the course. It's just a holding place for videos. Students, if they had an admin wheel, would also be able to publish to the course gallery if they wanted to share video projects. So it's a gallery that is specific to this course. Yep, moment.
It's been getting slower.
So I currently have 42 videos in this course. No, it's yeah. So the first thing you do is add your media, and this is pulling it from your course, from your Multimedia thing. So anything that's not already added will not have a check.
Do we need to add another person?
If you're wanting to, make a playlist, yes.
Yeah.
Because
Specifically
specifically
for a playlist.
for a playlist.
If not, then
Yes.
you're good, but.
So you would just, choose the ones you want to add and then publish them to this course. I'm not going to do that.
You said there's a possibility that students could also add.
The only way to get to it is through that wheel, and students don't have the wheel, right?
No. Yeah.
So not in Snap can they do that. Yeah.
Darn.
Okay, so once you've added them here, there's a really non-intuitive menu button in the top left where you can edit. Top right, thank you.
It's that unintuitive.
Yeah. Where you can create playlists. And then you just pick the ones that you want to stick in there. And then once they're in here, if they're out of order, you can rearrange them. And then you just save it. And then from there, the way you add it is you do have to add it as embed code. And so you have an option with a vertical playlist or a horizontal. My preference is horizontal, but whatever floats your boat. So then I copy this, and you'll notice the embed size. So I generally, when I'm pasting it in there, I'll change it to the 850 by 450, I think it is, so that it's that kind of more full screen.
So do you have to go in there to do that other thing?
No, from when you do that, you do it in
My meeting.
My Media, which that is not there. It is. No. Go to the course. Go to the course.
There's no easy way to get to
Now
it.
you have to go all the way
Go
back.
to the course.
It's very low.
Okay, so you would edit the video. And when you are here, you have a timeline here. And then basically you're just adding bookmarks. So at 0.00, what is my chapter title? I could add a description and some tags and whatnot. And then you just jump to the next point in the time. Once you save it, you jump to the next point and you just add another bookmark. So yeah, there's another way to like actually add slides and PDFs and things inside of the video as well. I've never really played around with that, but you know, if you want to, go for it. So you can do a single thing or upload a full deck. And that generally lets the student watch the PowerPoint while they're watching the video. So it's kind of weird looking.
And does it keep it as two separate videos, allowing the student to move?
It generally lets them then decide if they want to watch just the video, or if they want to watch them side by side, or you know, they have a little bit of configuration with that. So, well, let's just jump to metadata. Okay. So when we were pulling transcripts, yes, we were asking you guys to use the course code and everything in the title. When you're adding it to the course, don't do that, because if you want to use it for another purpose, you can't. So it is always better to call the title of the video by the title of the video. The other thing that we want you guys to do is to add the course code as a tag. That will allow you to search, because eventually your repositories, they're going to get huge. And if you want to pull all your videos for Poly 2051, I could just search by that tag and pull everything up. The description, I never show the description to students, so it's more for my purpose and for the instructor's purpose. So, you know, you can put in like, hey, these were from chapter 2 of the textbook, or from, you know, whatever you wanted to describe it as, or describe it as what the purpose of this video is, that type of thing. The other thing that when you are adding, this is not my video, so I can't do it, is collaborators. How many of you guys are remembering to add your instructor as a collaborator? It is their video, y'all. You have to add the instructor back as a collaborator. If they want to use that video in their on-campus course, they have to have access to it. If they want to share, hey, look what my LXD made me. They want to be able to see it and share it. They have to have access to it, okay? This is something that is new, so if you're taking notes, like write this down. From this point on, we want you guys to add videos in the LXD account, meaning sign in as LSU LXD or log in as. The reason for that is when you do that, the owner of the video stays with that generic LSU LXD account. And if something ever happens, you leave the university, whatever, all of our videos will remain with that generic account. So when you do that, add your SME as a collaborator, but then add yourself as a collaborator, so they're also in your MyMedia. Yeah.
That's why we added LSU.
So that is just a collaborator, it's not the owner of the video. If you were to delete the video, it's no longer anywhere. So LSU LXD doesn't have access to it. So write that down. Very important question.
So the LXD account is like the owner of the video.
The owner of the video on the back end for those purposes.
So all videos that we make from now on need to be uploaded there.
Do we need to go back and do other videos? Or?
We haven't come up with a game plan for that yet. So
No back cataloging.
not at the moment. Not, it's a lot of videos, I know.
We'll take a cycle and do that.
Yeah.
So
Versus just
that's please do that, because even when because I know we were supposed to be adding LSU LXD as a collaborator. When I went searching for really great, awesome videos for this presentation, I checked that account. There wasn't a lot in there, y'all. So change in policy. Sign in as LSU LXD when you are uploading to Kaltura. Okay? When you are uploading videos that are going into a course in Kaltura. If it's just I'm uploading this so then I can edit it later or something like that, I don't want that. I just want finished videos. Okay. Okay. Let's figure out where I am.
no, I deleted videos.
Don't delete videos. Okay. So now we have a fun activity. What would you do? So I'm going to show a bit of a video. It's a lecture video from an instructor. It's a narrated PowerPoint. So I want us to brainstorm of how we would use this and turn it into a positive learning experience, okay? Let me first state that I have no idea if this video is in a course in the state that it is currently in. I found it in our LSU LXD account, but I don't know if it's in one of our courses, okay? So it's from a remotely designed course. Okay.
You're gonna have to turn it up.
I can see his father Cooper up
You're
there.
like, you already got me.
Okay. Can you turn it on?
So part one, we talk about some basic concepts, terminology, and some components, different classification of the word race. And in part two, we're going to talk about the top race selection and how to
Online is gonna help all of them.
There's three most important factors to be considered when selecting top race. We are operating wheels, capacity. Radius.
Oh, you pulled a Lynn.
Operating wheels, horizontal reach, capacity. About how much you
You can underline the last word.
Let's just wait till it gets to this. Little captions will help.
Technically, selection means defining a big parameters random satisfy the requirement determined by the tree.
Okay, have we seen enough?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
So first, what principles is he violating, y'all?
Low talker principle.
The low talker, yeah.
That's one of the ones you didn't go over.
So there's text on the screen that he's reading,
But the
right?
text on the screen didn't match up with what he's saying at first. Like he's on the slide before he's on the information for that slide.
That's a editing problem.
So this is kind of a realistic situation. I know that I have gotten many a recorded PowerPoint. What can we brainstorm? What do we do with this? What should we do with this? What can we do with this? Turn. Yes, first. Sure.
Yeah, right, Kathleen. I think this is an opportunity, I did this with Jill's course too at some points, but like, so instead of having them like record this slide over again, it's an opportunity to put the video in the background and put a slide on top, maybe use an image to kind of depict. So you're not having them have to re-record it.
So essentially you're using the audio itself,
Using the audio.
separating the audio and video, okay?
And that's a good thing to let you guys know too, for this reason. At some point in Jill's introduction videos, the mouth was off with the voice. Don't know why, she used the same camera, came along at like module 2 or 3. So instead of her having to re-record all those videos, I'd bring her in, you know, at one point, but then take that video and put it in the background and have her voice just talk. And then use like images or whatever, text, you know, to kind of display, you know, to give information.
What do you mean by put the video in the background?
You can separate the audio and the video. So in Camtasia.
Right.
So if you wanna do it like very, very simply, you could just keep the PowerPoint visual in Camtasia and pull whatever media in over it, and
On
then
the
if
next
you wanna
layer
go
up.
back to the recorded PowerPoint, you still have it.
Yeah, and you can send things back and forward as you want.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like masking the video with.
Yeah,
Right,
with
especially
another
if they
image
ask,
or
you know,
slide.
maybe they don't
Yeah.
realize they're like scratching their face or doing something weird instead of saying, oh, let's,
Yeah.
you know, because you could crop it, but sometimes things just,
Yeah.
if you crop it, it's obvious. So
Yeah.
that's one way to be like, hey, I noticed you were like scratching your nose, kind of like you're picking it, but that's just a way not to have to like redo the video.
Other suggestions?
I felt like he had more energy when he went to the 3 points, like the second slide. I would just start it there. I felt like there was enough break in it
Yeah.
that you could do the intro stuff in text and like find the parts that are interesting and just
Or he's
cross
actually
out
expanding.
some of the boring stuff. And that way it jumps straight to the content and then, going over this with visuals. I mean, you can still use some of it as inspiration, you know?
Need some class.
Instead of typing him dry wiggly lines underneath the word, you have the word, you know.
Well, all of that text, my initial thought was take that out of the video completely, put it in the context around the video, and then when he gets to like, I don't know, a picture of a crane, then we start, I don't know what's, I did not watch the whole thing.
That's almost
So-
27 minutes of this too.
Yeah,
And another thing that was, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, how much time is that gonna take though? Like there were a lot of moments in some videos in environmental science where he read some stuff, but then he started talking about it, you know, and I just left it, just like, what am I gonna, like, I mean, and there were images too and all that kind of stuff, so it wasn't like that, and you could almost actually hear him.
Well, he also drew on the screen.
He did too, but
Well,
like,
his big.
well, I know.
That'll
But like,
be
how much
nice,
time can you, like, I don't know what I would do in this case, I'd probably
When
cry.
you have a course launching the next week, and you
Right.
just got this, so that's what I was saying, please
Right.
don't let it be mine, because y'all
Yeah, we
are
will.
Homer's course.
So, a tool that I'm not sure if everyone knows is the clip expand. It's Shift E in Kaltura, so like when he does that, like jumps back and jumps forward, like to be able to easily cut that out, and you can expand the freeze frame from before it, and it'll automatically fill
It's in
that.
Camtasia.
Yeah.
nice segue.
I'm sorry.
No, it was like perfect. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about how we now do this. So up to this point, we've been talking more about like the learner side of making things effective for the learner. But Erica brings up a good point of like, okay, now how do we effectively use our own time in order to make these wonderful, wonderful things? And so that's hopefully what the last, 15 or so minutes is going to be on is talking about that in brainstorming ways. So when we work with instructors, obviously, again, start with that script, start with an outline, have them focus on a single or a few topics and segment it. And if they can't explain it in 10 minutes, can we break it down? Can we just focus on the important bits and use that other random stuff around it as a description? These are conversations that we need to have with them up front, not after they send us 5 videos, right? So we need to talk about some of these multimedia principles with them. Don't freak them out with like the titles of them, but just like the concepts of them, of make it personal, make it engaging, make it short, make it focused, that type of thing. The other things is all about you, of like not adding the text of what they're saying on the screen, or if they are literally reading the PowerPoint out loud, how can I switch that out for a visual, those types of things. Have them always tie it to a learning goal. For technology, for instructors, a lot of instructors are like, what do I use to record? Kaltura has Kaltura Capture. Some people find it easy to use, some people don't. I highly recommend Zoom. Log in, share your screen, record to the cloud. It captions automatically. The captions are pretty darn good. And if they do it on their iPad or their tablet with the Zoom app, then you can use the whiteboard feature and do the screen record what they're doing on the screen. Another one, especially for instructors or instructors that aren't part of LSU, like for our continuing ed, there's a program called Loom. It does very similar things, Loom. It's a downloadable recorder. It's completely free. There's an app for iPads and tablets. You can, record what's on your iPad, and if you open up the whiteboard thing, then you can like scribble on it and stuff like that. There's also studios across campus. We have our own makeshift studio, but CXC has studios across campus. Priority goes to CXC instructors and students, but I believe other instructors can kind of reserve time in their studios. They have sound booths, they have other things. So that's a possibility. For us, use our Camtasia assets, animated icons, stock footage and images, special effects. If physics is doing rocket science and you want to do download that explosion and make the rocket, whatever, that would be fun. That type of thing. As far as other strategies or resources that we have, does anyone else want to share with those? What you guys use? Where do you go for, those images or those icons or, those types of things?
I like text myth assets. That's good. The search sucks, but like the stuff they have in there is really good when you find it.
And we've already mentioned some tips and tricks. If you're using a standard intro and outro, save that, use it so you can just plug in the meat of the same thing. The other thing is in Camtasia, you can set your color schemes and things specific to a course, so you don't have to go back and look at what was that thing. Melissa, was it Control E?
I think it's Control E.
Okay. So if y'all have your things open, let's open up Camtasia and take a look at a couple of things. Erica, pop quiz. For Moodle, what size should our Camtasia projects be?
720?
720.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it a Moodle capacity issue? Or is it just like
It's partly that, but it's partly a resolution issue if you think about the size of the column of space that we have in Moodle, I don't know.
So we're going to 720. So the first thing I'm gonna show you guys is how to make 720 the default for every project you ever open up and create. So if you go, is everybody in Camtasia? Okay, we're writing down instructions. If you go to Edit and Preferences, go to the Project tab and change that maximum to 720. Now this is not required, but I do highly recommend this one. If you go back to the Program tip, uncheck Use Trim Content in Transitions. It's marked on for default, and so when you clip something out and then you want to fade from that slide to the previous slide, it's using the stuff that you cut out in that transition, and that's why sometimes the transitions might look jumpy or weird. You don't want to use the stuff you cut out in the transition. So I would uncheck that and then save. Okay.
will it automatically update all your projects?
No. No.
Good.
And this is something you want to double check. I've had instructors who send me an actual video file instead of collaborating through Kaltura. When they send me the actual video file, sometimes it's like teeny tiny on my screen, and I didn't realize that it wasn't the size of my canvas until after I produced it. I was like, why is it so tiny? So you may have to stretch their video files out to the size of your canvas.
So I was right the first time and it's Shift.
It's Shift E, Shift E, y'all, and that is for
What's that do?
You're shifty.
Like if you've got a video open, you can open the video,
oh sure.
just slice it, cut it, cut a chunk in it. And then you put your little cursor thing towards the end on the part that you want to be the freeze frame.
Okay, so I'm gonna slice it.
Yeah.
Slice it and
And
dice
like
it.
give it a little space so you can move into it, you know, like move whatever that part that you cut towards the end, you can just jump it somewhere or delete it or whatever.
Insert time. Okay, I got stuff.
Okay, so now put your little cursor back together and put it towards the end of that first one.
This one?
No, the one in front.
Okay.
This one?
Yeah.
Shift.
No, just move your little timeline dragger thingy. Don't you know how about the technical terms?
Like that?
Yeah.
Your
Okay.
dragger.
And you can do Shift E or you can do like in choose a
Shift.
and then you tell it how long, and if you put too long, it'll just fill in the stuff.
Oh. Wait.
I don't know, the little time thing that popped up, so.
Yeah, undo, hold on.
We're making a freeze frame.
What is a freeze frame?
So out of
like
line.
something to stay on the screen
Shift
because
E.
it's out of sync with their voice and it needs to stay on the same screen for longer, or they did some weird stuff.
I see.
Yeah, if you make that too big, it'll limit you and then it'll fill it in.
Okay.
You can say you want it for a certain amount of time or.
What I've been doing is, if there's a screen, you can also export the frame. But then, extra step, you have to like bring it back in as an image and then stick it in there, but good tip. Any other Camtasia tips y'all wanna like share?
If you're not using the marker, turn off the marker because it's gonna like make you rip your hair out. Go into view.
This right here, no, this one right here, yep.
It's marker, yep.
So every if you see these things, but this would be a really great way to be like, okay, I need a new chapter. If you're doing chapters in Kaltura right there.
And if you want to, like, because while you're editing, that marker is gonna like be your nightmare. Mark the stuff that you want to mark ahead of time, and then turn the bitch
And
back
then
off.
you just, and next to the marker above your tracks, you can just click on that and it'll go away, or the up one,
Yeah.
it'll go away.
And then your marks stay, but that annoying thing goes away.
Another thing that you guys need to remember to do is to zip your project files and save them to the course folder and box. My personal workflow is I save everything to my desktop, and then once the video is finished and produced, only the MP4 goes to box and the zipped file goes to box. Once those are up there and in Kaltura, I delete all the junk, all the extra files and folders and things.
So that's a share.
That is under, that's gonna be, after you share it, you go to File, Export, as a zipped file, a zip project, and this, you wanna make sure, it's by default, it's turned on, but it includes all the media. So you don't have to go and like try to re-find everything that you use. It zips everything up.
Do we need to put the zip in box or no?
Yes. Yeah. The zipped and the MP4.
The MP4 should be in the zip. No?
No.
No, because it's just the project file. It's not the produced files.
Oh, so you,
So when you produce a video,
this isn't the same as when you,
No.
Export.
when you like click on share,
why can't you just put the project file, like the thing that you export.
Cause all the assets don't come.
All the
with it.
assets don't come
with
along
it.
for the ride.
Especially if you download like text
What is
based
all that
assets
crap
and
in
stuff.
there?
That's all like the player and the encoding
You're gonna
and
have places.
stuff. So when you share, when you click on share file, it produces a folder like this where you have all of this junk. This junk is just the stuff that makes it play in various areas. It's not the project, it's not the assets that are in the project.
Right,
It's
but when you save it as a Camtasia file somewhere, that's how I do it.
Right.
All the assets are in the video.
they're in the video, but then if you send that project file to someone else, the assets in the video
Are gone.
are gone.
We can't get to it.
It says, I can't find
That happened with project management. like,
this image
continuously.
because it's on your computer, it's not integrated into the file
And
itself.
similarly, if you come into this folder and you create like an images folder and you save those assets there after they're already in the video and you send it that way, even if they're in there, it's not gonna go through.
So when you zip the file, it takes the audio, the video, the extra images you bring in, the LSU online, whatever you have in your video, zips it up into a nice package so that if you need to go on maternity leave or something, I can go in and edit your video because everything is in there.
You take my videos from a couple
Okay.
Can we, I know we're not making changes to templates and stuff, so can you make a note for whenever we do make changes to the project plan, that be added? Like just.
The zip and the MP4.
Like to me, that would be more valuable than create the video, upload the video. Or at least if the upload said like,
Right.
save zip file.
So the purpose of those items on the project plan is like where do you spend the time? So how long does it take you to zip a file? So if you have the process, you document it somewhere else or whatever, like what actually entails creating a Camtasia video. That would be part of like that process. Like if you want to make the project plan like 1 million things long, sure, I can, absolutely. Okay, so that's it for me. I just have one other note that I have, and that is that I would caution you on blowing your instructors' minds with the very first video. I know we want to impress, we want to like be like, oh my God, this is amazing. But when you first show them that first video, you were setting the standard, the level of expectation that they're going to have for every video throughout the entire course. And they might be like, look how great she did with that. I'm just going to give her nothing but videos. What do you do with that? Now you're stuck in a hole because you are going to have 35 videos that you need to produce at the same level as that first one. So think about, while we want to impress, we don't necessarily want to be Oscar worthy at this moment in our process. So use templates, that type of thing, but it's very. The second video I did for Dr. Hogan, I was like, oh, I could have, he's talking about national security. Let me pop in some like cops and some army rangers. And then I was like, whoa, so step back. Like, no, this is not, no. So I had to edit myself because I was like, I don't want to sit here and like try to animate every 5 words he says for the rest of the course. So just, think about that. So we have 5 minutes left. Y'all have any questions? Comments?
Who's gonna take over Shutterstock images when Lydia's not here?
So she'll have to designate a person.
Lydia, do that.
You.
No, I'm not volunteering.
I designate you as a tribute.
We'll figure it out.
It's maybe 5 minutes a day, if that.
I'll do it.
So it's like not, and then you get immediate access to.
I know, I'll do it.
it's-
I'll do it. I'll bother you.
So Kristen's gonna be my backup.
She's gonna be in there shopping like all day, like, oh my God.
I make emails to myself.
She does that already, so like. Having the power to download.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my share in the recording. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.